Hey, in this video I want to show you how to start seeds indoors. So the reason we want to do this is we can effectively lengthen our growing season by up to 2 months. One of the seeds we're going to plant today is a cayenne pepper, and we can plant this 8 weeks before we actually plant outside. And the reason we would do that is trying to avoid the last frost of the season. So we're in Texas, in Houston. Our last frost comes pretty early, but still, it's January now. We really want to get towards the end of February before we put anything in the ground that would be delicate, especially like a new seed where we have a small little seedling. If frost comes through with that, it's going to kill it. So we can go ahead and start these now and get a jump on the process. Now, I want to show you a way that you can start these without having to go buy too much fancy materials. You might have stuff around the house that you can do. And really the basis of this is going to be an egg carton. So just regular kind of like paper egg carton. Obviously we're not going to use anything like plastic. That's not going to work. But something like this, this pressed paper will actually break up if we plant it directly into the ground. And if we want to take the root ball out of it before we plant it, they're really easy to cut and they'll hold a little bit of moisture. So it's a really good container for our seeds to start in. The other things we're going to have are some starting soil. So this is really just some potting soil with some vermiculite mixed in, which is worm castings. Now vermiculite doesn't have any nutrient value in it. It's really just to hold moisture, which these seeds are going to need a lot of while they germinate. And the potting soil is not really strongly fertilized potting soil, because these seeds really are going to have all the nutrition they need for quite a while just in themselves. And if some new growers might be tempted to put some fertilizer in there to try to speed up the process. If you do that, you'll actually probably end up burning your seedlings. They'll come out all twisted or they'll just die. So keep it as something simple. If you do vermiculite, really look at the package and make sure that it's just vermiculite. Sometimes with things like perlite or vermiculite, there might be Miracle Grow mixed in. We don't want that. Again, that could end up burning our seedlings. So you may have seen people start seeds in an egg carton before. And what a lot of people do is they'll just put their dirt and their seeds in the places where you actually put the eggs. But I'm going to do something a little bit different here. Now that's a viable option. You can do that. People take those and they end up putting them on their windowsill, and it does give you a nice tidy little container. It's easy to move around. You could set that pretty easily on a windowsill just because of the size of it. The problem with that is you don't have any drain in the bottom of it. Now, sure, you could easily take a pencil or something and pop holes in this, but you're still gonna have a really shallow cup, because in between, you can see here, there's actually pretty deep cuts in between these eggs, and so you can't get much soil in there. We want something a little bit deeper. Now, if you want to use that, that's fine. It'll be a little bit harder once they root to get them out. You probably have to get a spoon or something and scoop them out. You might end up damaging the roots. But another thing that's kind of overlooked are these middle dividers. Now these are really good. These are taller, they're deeper. You can see on this side we can actually plant, we can put a lot more dirt in here, almost a full finger's length. Where this, I'm only going to get about a fingertips length. And it also has a little drain hole in it. Now we got to have drainage when we plant seeds, because if not, we can have liquid just sort of, or water just sitting there, and your seed will end up rotting. And so obviously they're not going to germinate. So we want them to be able to, if we overwater them, to be able to drain a little bit. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. Just a regular pair of scissors. This material is not super tough. And just cut kind of right down the middle of where your eggs would be. And you'll be able to tell as you cut this stuff that it's really, it is just pressed paper for the most part. And you can look at whatever brand you're buying. We only buy organic eggs, and typically companies that are gonna make or produce organic eggs are gonna be more conscious about their packaging as well. So typically with these type of eggs cartons, you're not gonna find a lot of dyes or any chemicals in it, which makes them a little bit safer to use. Obviously, it's something we would want if we're gonna be growing seeds for food that we're eventually gonna eat. We don't want to be poisoning our dirt with a bunch of chemicals or dyes or anything like that. So, here we go. Cut these out. And now what you have is a strip of little pyramids. Now you could keep it like this, or if you want to be able to place things separately, you could cut these apart. I'm just going to keep them together as they are because we're going to end up putting this in this container, which is really just a big storage container, but I have holes drilled all through it. Again, that's going to give us some airflow. This also makes it possible to use this for some other things like growing gourmet mushrooms, which I'll show you another time. This is actually a fruiting chamber originally for mushrooms, but it works just fine for starting seeds. There's also a potato in here. You see that in the bottom, that we're getting some roots off of it as well. So with these containers cut up, I'm going to take this mix, put a little bit in there. We don't really want to pack it down hard, but just push it down enough to know that you have this whole shape filled. Leave a little bit of space at the top because we got to get our seeds in there. You can always press a hole for the seeds if you want. I'd rather just not fill it all the way, put our seeds on top, and then we can cover it up. So there you go. So now we got some dirt in there, and now we can take our seeds. Now when you start seeds, you want to take, you don't want to put just one. You want to put a few because you don't always know that every seed's going to germinate. So, if you have really good seeds from a really good supplier, maybe you get 100% germination. It's rare to do that. So we want to increase our odds. So I only have a few of these cucumber seeds left. So these are bush cucumbers. You have vining cucumbers, you have bush cucumbers. These are bush. So I'm going to put 2 seeds in my container. Press those down, and then I'm going to put a little bit of dirt over the top. Now I'm not going to pack it down hard, just cover them up. And if you're not exactly sure how your seeds need to be planted, read the packaging. The packaging will tell you the best conditions, and you could, almost every packaging is going to tell you can plant these directly into the ground. You absolutely can. But like I said before, the difference from starting inside is we get to start earlier. Like I said, now we get to start in January, where really we probably need to wait a couple more months to plant these in the ground just to make sure we get away from the frost. Now, another seed that you can start early in the season, cayenne peppers. So with these, we got a bunch of these little guys. I'm going to plant 3 into each container. Cover that up. Now this dirt, like I said, it's potting soil and vermiculite mixed together, but then I also mix in some water because we want to be able to work with it. We don't want it to be dry. And really, the consistency you're looking for, once you put the water in there, you should be able to pick it up and squeeze it and have a few drops of water come out. We don't want it like runny, pouring water. That's too wet. But just enough for a few drops to come out. All right, so now we have 3 cells of cayenne, 2 cells of cucumbers. I'm gonna move these out of the way here. All right, we have our trash. This stuff, a lot of these containers, read the packaging. A lot of them you'll see here what's actually in it, but a lot of these egg cartons can actually be composted. So that's good. What you would consider brown material or carbon material for your composting, dry material. If you've got a lot of vegetable waste in there, a lot of wet green material, you need some carbon. Sometimes that'll work. Try to use the pieces that don't have ink on it. Like you probably wouldn't want to use the top, but the bottom is fine. None of this has any writing on it. So, you can shred that up and throw that in your compost. Typically, check on that and make sure that, there's no bad stuff in it. So now, let's move over to our chamber where we're going to store our seeds. And so this just has a layer of perlite in it. Perlite is a superheated rock. It's like an extruded stone. Again, this has no nutritional content in it. It's important. We got little seeds in here. They're fragile. We don't want to, this stuff, again, you can find this with Miracle Grow in it. Stay away from that. This really is just to maintain moisture. So you could have split these out. Like I said, we could have cut these apart if you wanted to have different rows, different sections, whatever. But you just kind of settle this down in your perlite, and because they have those tips on them, like I show you, since they're little pyramids, they sit up in there perfectly. Then push a little perlite around the sides, and now they're steady. So, squirt bottle. Don't take a normal watering can and pour it on these, because you got little bitty seeds in there. Particularly those pepper seeds are so small, and something like lettuce seeds, beets. Sometimes a lot of these seeds are tiny, tiny, tiny. Onion seeds. So if you dump a bunch of water on there, you might wash them out, and you might not even know you did it. So get you a spray bottle. Remember, that soil should have been a little damp already. We're going to spray this in here and get this perlite with a good bit of moisture on it, because that way this is going to maintain humidity. Now, seeds need to stay at high humidity. If you have a seed growing kit, if you went out and bought one rather than using what you have at home, they have a cover over them, they have water in them, they have all these little fancy little things to make sure it stays high humidity. We can do that really simply. Squirt bottle, perlite to maintain the humidity. And again, this all has holes drilled in it so air can flow and not end up getting mold. So now that I've got this done, I also have a hygrometer. Anytime you're starting seeds, you're going to want one of these. They're inexpensive. You can find them a lot of different places, online. You can find them in your local hardware store, I'm sure. Drop that in there, and that's going to read your temperature and also your humidity. Now, we want to keep that humidity as high as possible, in the 90s, while we're germinating. And now I'm going to put my lid on, also again with holes drilled in it. Now, because we do have holes, again, there's going to be airflow. You're going to want to take a look at that a couple times a day and make sure that humidity is staying really high. And we want to put this in an area where it's going to stay warm. You could put a heat map under this. You can find a lot of seed starting heat maps to keep these warm, to keep this whole container warm, or just put it in a warm place in the house. Put it somewhere where the sun coming through the window is going to land on it. You do need some sunlight for these, depending on the seed. Some seeds, companies will tell you that you want to grow them or start them, germinate them, which is the initial process of getting that first sprout, that they need complete darkness for that. Now, obviously they have darkness, they're under the dirt, but you may need to start them with something like a paper towel, something different. So just check your seed package or do a search on the internet to see how your seeds need to start. But we're going to do these like these. These will do well in this condition. I actually am going to use a little grow light. So this can be bought at, a big hardware store that you probably have around you. If you're in a decent sized city, maybe your local hardware store has one too. They're inexpensive. Pick one of these up, but it is different than a regular light bulb because it has a broad spectrum of light. That's probably a little more than we have to go into detail for this video, but just know that if you want to grow plants, you need a different spectrum of UV light than you would get from just a regular bulb. So something like grow light can come in handy. They don't use a lot of energy either, so you don't have to worry too much about that. You can put that in a lamp, set it kind of far away when your seeds are starting, and you can start moving them a little bit closer as they grow. Now, these will take 7 to 14 days to germinate, and then we'll see a little sprout pop out of the top. When that happens, we'll give them a little more light every day. We can crack the lid. They don't have to have as much humidity. Then we're more worried about keeping the dirt, pretty well watered, and they'll grow from there. So once these germinate, we'll check back. But again, we're not going to put any fertilizer on these, not for quite a while, until they're probably anywhere from 3 to 6 inches tall, and then we've got a few good seeds on them. So now you know how to start your seeds. You know how to use stuff you have around the house to do it. Eggs, egg cartons, containers you can do them in, and you're getting a jump on the growing season. So thanks for watching. Check back once these sprout. We'll do an update, and we'll kind of follow these along until they end up in the ground. So if you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe. If you know somebody that's getting into farming and is not exactly sure how they want to start their seeds, send them this video, and we'll talk to you next time.